Good morning, Thursday, and the ANC just does not get it. We now have a situation that has unfolded where a military, the general, the boss of the army, now went to Iran for a tour of their military facilities, and while on this tour, had a whole lot to say about America and Israel. Now, the South African government has since come out and chastened this general. However, for me, this is just an entire theater. And it's theater because what was he doing there in the first place? Was he there without the knowledge of the government? And if he was there without the knowledge of the government, then he has pretty much done what they accused Whitfield of doing, right? So he must go immediately. He should actually just send his uniform back and he can join the Iranian Republican Army, right? However, I am wondering about something, and I've said this before, and I'm going to pin my last video that I spoke about this. Is South Africa planning military support for Iran, right? Now, why would the government of this country do something this stupid, okay? And the answer to the question is very, very, very simple. It is a very simple answer, right? The ANC, for all intents and purposes, from what we're seeing from various news outlets, independent as well as legacy, is once again in serious financial difficulty and is once again unable to pay back its owed money to the group that handled their last election campaign and has been sent letters of demand demanding payment or face once again attachment of ANC assets, right? We also have the situation with Mkwanazi, which has, for all intents and purposes, fingered the ANC, NEC, almost to a person in major corruption, crime, and money laundering, right? We also have the situation where the ANC voter base is shrinking by the minute, especially with things like Operation Dudula going on, which are, although a lot of people don't realize it and think that it's all the foreigners, all about the foreigners, is actually what it is doing. It is weakening them even further in the minds of traditional ANC voters who are now seeing the realities of what the ANC government policies and governance have done to them. And so their voter base is shrinking further. When you see the rhetoric that is being pushed by the ANC on a day-to-day basis, the ANC is still trying to demonize apartheid. Apartheid deserves to be demonized, but also to demonize white people in South Africa and try and point to them as being the enemy. But more and more black South Africans are starting to realize that it's not white people that are the enemy. And because they're starting to realize that it's not white people, it's the enemy, the ANC is now using this focus on the foreigners to now divert the argument from the land and from whites and from all of that onto the foreigners as the new enemy that can be unified against, right? And having said all of that, they have underestimated the intellect of their own voter base, who are now looking at the foreigners not as something only to be unified against, but that this entire story with the foreigners is actually created by the ANC and their policies, and they're waking and have woken up to that. So for all intents and purposes, the ANC is losing its grip on power in South Africa. Now, I've said this before, because I'm not a student of warfare and geopolitics in the sense of a formal education, but I've looked at a lot of wars around the world to try and understand strategy, and to try and understand, which is very difficult to understand, military strategy sometimes, and even political strategy, which is even more difficult to understand. But I've tried to sort of figure out why these wars start and what ignites them. And generally speaking, it's usually a progressive lead up to tension, and then a spark is lit. Now, you can argue who lights the spark. You can argue about who lights the spark, but a spark is lit, and it's usually a very small thing that ignites the spark, right? So now we have this in South Africa. We have a situation where, due to exceptionally poor ability on law enforcement and the military, chaos is starting to break out everywhere in this country. You can see it. CRT heists, violent strikes, looting, Dudula, fights outside hospitals, the whole story, right? And this is a mission to create instability, because I'm telling you again that the only way that the ANC can stay in power is if there's some kind of violent, armed rebellion that they have to squash. But the harder they're trying, the more South Africans, and I applaud South Africans for this, are being reserved in this issue. Now we have the situation where America has put tariffs on us. They're about to put sanctions on the ANC. And the ANC are literally, they don't have anywhere to turn. So now my question is all this stuff with Iran, are you trying to spoil for a fight with America? Are you hoping that these actions are going to bring America to a point where they themselves start feeling threatened by your actions, especially concerning nuclear assets, and are going to send a military response to you? Because the thing that I'm seeing is that you're hoping for that. You're hoping that by harassing and attacking and belittling and showing the middle finger to America every chance you get, every time one of your spokespeople, your politicians, whoever you put on television has got something to say about America. Now, if this is the case, I'm starting to wonder if you have the money, ANC, to pay your TV licenses, because it appears to me that you have not been watching the news. I don't think that you quite understand the concept of strategic, surgical, tactical strikes. I don't think you understand this. You have no bunkers like Iran has got. You've got no underground tunnel system like Hamas has got. You've got no ideological route or reason for the world to say, well, we need to protect you. If you are doing this on behalf of China, and China is pushing you to do this, you've got to understand that the only reason that China is getting you to do this is to divert the West's attention from Taiwan. Because China's goal is Taiwan. And if they have to sacrifice you to get Taiwan, That is exactly what they're going to do, and that is what I'm seeing. That China is supporting Iran and now pushing you to support Iran to try and divert America's attention and the world's attention from their plans in Taiwan. Now, what you don't understand, ANC, is that if the Americans were to come here to teach you a little lesson in manners, all right, within 24 hours, okay, they will flatten Pelindaba, they will flatten Coburg, they will flatten the union buildings, they will flatten the parliament, they will flatten all 4 our major ports, and they will tactically strike the homes of every single ANC official in this country in one day, and they'll get on their back on their ships, and they will leave. And then what will your response be to that? Are you going to mobilize your Navy? Are you going to mobilize your Air Force and go and fight the Americans on American soil? Is that going to be your response? Do you think that China is going to travel across the oceans to come and take on the biggest economic and military superpower in the world on your behalf? And then on a last note, you have been implicated, and the evidence is available and is being shared in intelligence circles, according to many commentators on the internet, that you had prior knowledge of the October 7th attacks on Israel, which were directed and instigated by Iran. And you just seem to think that Israel has forgotten. So the only thing I can think is that you're doing this on purpose in the hope of some military response from these countries, thinking that that military response is going to be on the citizens of this country, and that the citizens of this country will then prop you back up into power. But what you don't understand is that you are going to be removed. And you better start getting that understanding. Have a fantastic day. See you all later.